UC Berkeley has one of the largest collections of papyrus fragments in North America, housed at the Bancroft Library. The papyri are around 2,000 years old. They were excavated in Egypt around 1900. In ancient Egypt, papyrus was made from 2 layers of pith from the papyrus plant, laid at 90-degree angles and pressed to form a sheet. Egyptians used these sheets like we use paper today for writing their poetry, receipts, lists, and letters. In the preservation department, the conservator's goal is to make the text on the papyrus visible. Many of the papyrus pieces come to us crumpled or fragmented or covered in a substance called gesso. Our papyrus work consists of removing dirt and gesso, opening folds, realigning fibers, and joining separated fragments so that researchers around the world can see the script. If there are words hiding in the folds, we use humidity to soften the fibers so that they can be unfolded without breaking. We first test the ink to make sure it isn't water-soluble and risk bleeding. If the ink proves to be fast, we very gently humidify the problem area. If the entire piece is rolled or crumpled up, we can put it in a humidity chamber, basically a closed container that has some water in the bottom, with the piece held on a shelf above it. This is a slow and gentle way to humidify. When the rolled or crumpled papyrus fragment has thoroughly relaxed, it can be removed and unfolded, and then allowed to dry flat. Often there are broken off pieces that need to be secured in the proper location. We do this by joining them to the document with tiny pieces of thin but strong Japanese paper that has a bit of water-soluble cellulose adhesive applied to it. We also need to protect the papyrus after treatment so that it can be safely stored. We mount the papyrus to a piece of clean glass with a few little tabs of Japanese paper using wheat starch paste. The next day we place another piece of glass on top and seal the 2 pieces with cloth tape around all the edges. This process ensures the papyrus will be here for future generations of researchers. Many journals, government reports, and other serial publications are published as pamphlets or very thin paperbacks. But pamphlets are fairly delicate. They're often too thin and floppy to sit on a shelf between other books, so we add some support by way of pamphlet binders. Pamphlets are often stapled through the side of the page or folded in half and stapled through the center of the fold. We use pamphlet binders, which are made of archival board and plastic. The covers are made with boards covered with acrylic to resist water, and PETG, a type of polyethylene, a see-through plastic cover. Sometimes we staple pamphlets through the fold into the binders, but we also sew them. We punch either 3 or 5 holes through the fold, and linen thread is sewn in a figure-8 pattern through the pamphlet and the binder to join them together. A knot is tied on the outside of the pamphlet binder. Once the pamphlet is sewn, an adhesive flap built into the binder is used to cover the sewing and wrap around the board. These pamphlet binders are a very effective way to protect the pamphlets while they are on library shelves or jostled in backpacks. Here is a full leather binding that has a loose back cover. In order to keep the text block attached to the cover and prevent it from continuing to pull away, we are going to reinforce the hinge using Japanese paper. The repair is done with the board open and supported from the underside. We want to select a Japanese paper that has a similar color tone to the end paper, but the real challenge is to select just the right thickness. If it's too thin, then the treatment might not be strong enough to support the weight of the cover and the text block. If it's too thick, then there is a very real risk of tearing the leather on the outside of the cover. First, we tear a strip of the Japanese paper using a water brush. This maximizes the fibers that extend outward and provide more surface area for the mending paper to grip and conform to the topography of the inside cover. We apply wheat starch paste to the Japanese paper and carefully lay it in place so that it spans the inner joint, covering the shoulder of the text block and the edge of the board. The repair is rubbed down with a Teflon folder. The board is allowed to air dry partially, and then the book is closed. We have many different techniques for mending paper. In this example, we have a map with a tear that needs to be repaired. otherwise there is risk of further damage or loss of information. We select a piece of Japanese paper that is slightly thinner than the weight of the paper that we are mending. We choose a piece the size and shape of the tear and use a needle to cut the paper, which minimizes the length of the fibers extending outward. Then we lay the Japanese paper on a piece of blotter, which is a thick paper that helps soak up excess adhesive. Too much moisture can cause the map to cockle or stain. Then we brush out the Japanese paper with sodium carboxymethylcellulose, a water-based adhesive. Lift it off the blotter and lay it onto the map, bridging the tear. We use a Japanese stencil brush to tamp down the mend so there is full contact, and then lay down a piece of Hollytex, a piece of blotter, and waits to let the repair dry. The Hollytex keeps the Japanese paper from sticking to the blotter, but allows moisture to pass through it. The blotter absorbs moisture, and the weight keeps the paper flat and prevents the moisture from spreading laterally, creating stains called tide lines or cockling. Among the many interesting items in the library are rolled panoramic photographs. These are very long photos, often of grand landscapes or large groups of people, which were made with special rotating cameras starting in the late 19th century. Panoramas have often been kept rolled up because they are too long to store flat. After years of storage, they retain the rolled shape and become too stiff to open without cracking the image. They must be humidified in a slow, controlled way until they are relaxed enough to open safely. We prepare an enclosed humidity chamber with about an inch of water in the bottom and place the roll or several rolls on top of a perforated support panel above the water. The chamber is closed with a tight lid, and over the course of the next few hours, the humidity slowly rises and the photos begin to relax until they are ready to open completely without risk of damage. The most exciting part of this work is the moment when we are finally able to unroll a photo and perhaps be the first to see the image in 100 years. Working quickly because the prints immediately begin to dry out and roll up again, we lay the humidified photos between layers of blotting paper and cover them with heavy plates of glass. Most are between 3 and 4 feet long, but the longest one we've treated was 5.5 feet long. We leave the photos under glass for a few days to make sure they are completely dry and can be stored flat.